Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. It's very cool for me and an absolute pleasure. So thanks for taking the time to do this. How are you today?
Okay, thank you. And you?
No complaints. It's a Saturday evening, and yeah, well, I'm sitting chatting to you, so that's very, very cool. Um, yeah, I
Oh.
can't. Yeah, I can't quite believe I'm going to kind of ask this, but obviously the year is 2025. We're quarter way through it, and crazily, I'm going to get to ask this question: how has 2025 so far been treating Defenestration so far?
Well, it's been kind of it's going really fast, isn't it? Is it
Yeah,
me?
it
It's going
is.
really fast. So we've not really been we haven't had any gigs in 2025, but
Mm,
we have been re-recording some of our old songs. So that's like something that's in the works. And yeah, we kind of don't get we it's harder to get together now. We've all got like grown up lives and things and live not all in the same town. So yeah, we had to meet for an impromptu photo shoot because we hadn't got any like recent photo shoots, and
mm.
the only day we could manage it was raining. But so we so we haven't really seen much of each other. But yeah.
Things are just ticking along nicely. You're absolutely right. Life comes at you fast and hard, and suddenly days go by, weeks go by, months go by, and we're all just trying to, well, get as much done in the little time we have, right?
Definitely, yeah.
So, what is kind of keeping you busy right now as far as the band goes? Is it just to focus on these re-recordings and just building up the content, right?
Yeah, I think it's so much different now than it was back in 20 odd years ago. So being in a band is different. A lot of there's social media and all those things. So I think it's been a bit of a learning curve for us, to be honest. I mean, I don't even think MySpace was around when we were like, so, there's all these kind of streaming sites, and it's just so different. So we're kind of learning as we go about how things are now.
Mm.
So I think it's just been the sort of first couple of months of this year, and the last since we started working with Bitter Edge management, it's been a case of, so what do we actually do now? Because we
Yeah.
don't get in the back of a transit van and go up and down the country for months on end, which we can't now anyway. But even if we could, that's not necessarily how we do it now. So we're trying to take like a quite a do-it-yourself approach, doing the recordings. It's basically to take ownership back on them, really. Like Taylor Swift did, and
Fabulous.
then yes, and then we're just probably just going to release them online with some DIY videos and things. So see how it goes. And we are looking for gigs, but at the moment, I think understandably, we're like new again because people don't know who we are. Of course they don't.
Well, I mean, this is an age. Well, I hate to bring it up, but it's an age thing more than anything else. I was 15 years old in 1999. New metal was my
Mm.
gateway, and one such band who would obviously go on to release a certain album that I listened to a hell of a lot back then called One Inch God. And the video, I must say, the video Stitch as well. I probably watched that like 100 times on MTV2 and Kerrang back in the day.
Oh.
Basically, this has been a shocking reminder of my age. Do you feel as old as I currently feel?
Oh, absolutely. Like, yeah, there was when we did it was the second gig that we did, like after reuniting, I call him, I'm just gonna say a boy, but he's a lad there who had got a copy of One Inch God for us to sign, and he was younger than it.
How
Mm.
fabulous is that, right? But how, I mean, as momentarily disheartening as that is, how fabulous is that to find someone who younger than an album, finding it and loving it enough that they want you to sign it?
I know, absolutely. And we are seeing some old fans coming to gigs as well. And,
Hmm.
some saying, oh, I used to come to your gigs or like, I first heard you when I was 13 and stuff. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
Stop it. But yeah, it does definitely make me feel old. But I'm just, every time somebody says, "Oh, I really like your band," and remember who we are, I just feel really surprised by that because it seems such a long time ago.
It is, and there's a lot of things that have happened since then. Of course, not that obviously in your personal life, but from a professional side of things as well. We'll get into that in a little bit more, but sticking kind of just like with the, I guess, the look back to a degree. I mean, honestly, from my perspective, welcome back. But sum up what it feels like for you to be talking about Defenestration beyond a nostalgic look back, because while that isn't obviously an element at this stage of things, we are now beginning to look forward as well.
Yeah, and it's I mean, yeah, I think the nostalgia was like for the first sort of gig coming back, which was going to be a one-off originally. And it was funny because I was just thinking, like, my mum and dad have always lived in this house in Kettering, and I have sat in this very room doing interviews with Kerrang and stuff on the phone before. So it was like, this is a bit strange doing that again. Yeah, so moving forward, we have got some ideas for new songs and stuff. Sort of, they're just sort of riffs and ideas at the moment, but it's quite exciting, I think. I mean, I haven't been in a band at all for about 10 years. So for me, it's quite exciting to be able to, I'm really looking forward to writing songs again. Yeah. So I think that'll be sort of what we're doing. And then next year, and this is about feeling a bit old, next year, One Inch God's going to be 25.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, we're going to maybe like sort of have a little bit of fun with that and celebrate that poor little album's 25-year-old. But yeah, so I think moving forward, the new stuff I'm excited about writing. I think we all are, because we're all different people now, and musically, but also personally, and you put yourself into those songs, and it's really good to see what changes with that sort of 20 years.
Yeah, right. 20 years of growth, right? 20 years of change, both personal and professional. It could be an incredibly creative time.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's go back a little bit, though. I want to talk about that first moment when you got in the room together for a while, the first time back together in a long time. What was the feeling in the air?
I think it was very strange because
Mm.
we just sort of was like, oh, all right, and then just started playing it, and then I mean, I don't think we'd all been in the same. Literally, all of us had not been in the same room for 20 years. We'd seen each other here and there, but yeah, I think, and I keep saying this to people, like the weirdest thing about it was the fact it wasn't weird. And I mean, we would have been, we spent a lot of time in practice rooms in the back of vans and playing gigs, and have played those songs so many times. But I know for me, I was very worried that it was going to, like, I was not going to be able to even make that noise anymore. And I was just like, but it all just like fell together. And like after the first couple of songs, we kind of looked at each other and was like, oh, actually, sounds all right, doesn't it? So yeah, it was weirdly not weird.
I mean, it's great that was the case. Obviously, the dread and the anxiety of, oh my God, we're going to get in this room and it's going to be awkward, it's going to be weird, you're going to feel uncomfortable. That would have killed it dead in its tracks, let alone whether or not you had the ability to do what you were obviously able to do when you were so much younger. So
Yeah.
it's fabulous to hear that it was so comfortable for you.
Yeah, it was really good. And I think as well, like, as much as I was nervous about the first gig back, and I mean, I always get nervous before any gig ever. I always have. But it was like that added nerves, I think, of am I going to be able to? And yeah, I think once that music kicked in, it was just like no time had passed, really.
You started to get the bug. I mean, you said you weren't really in a band for 10 years. What kind of kept you out there? What kept you out of music? Was it just life?
Oh, well, yeah, it was actually my health. So I got basically burnt myself out physically. I was doing a master's degree and I was in 2 bands and I was working full time in a mental health unit. And I literally burnt myself out, and I had got chronic fatigue syndrome. So it was kind of like my health that kept me out of being in a band at that point. And then I had a little boy who's 5, nearly 6, and yeah, like have my own business. I'm a psychotherapist, and so yeah, I kind of just didn't go back to. I think in my head, I always thought I'd like to do that again, but I couldn't imagine. I didn't imagine it would ever be with Defend though.
Well, no, of course that would have been. I doubt it even really entered your mind at any stage. But obviously, so many things going on. I mean, it's fabulous that even though it was a long period of time out of music, that it was always still at the back of your mind. What about keeping up your abilities? How often did you practice? Did you continue to sing? What were you doing to kind of keep your voice alive?
So yeah, I still sang, but I didn't do the shouty thing. I mean, the 2 bands that I was in Northampton, where I moved to, they were like punky, but still like one of them was more sort of punky metal. So I did a bit of the shouting, but not as much as I did with Defend. But then obviously when like for 10 years, I don't think I ever made that noise ever. and I have such a like, you know, being a mum and a therapist, I have such a gentle voice like the majority of the time. And I do sing in the shower and sing around the house and sing baby songs, and now just any songs. I've always kept singing. I was also really mindful when I was pregnant that your voice can change dramatically. So I sang all the way through my pregnancy religiously just to make sure that I still had the range I wanted. But yeah, so like I did sing, but not like that.
Okay, so it's time to sing like that. How quickly does that become comfortable again?
To be honest, I don't think it became easy and comfortable for probably the first 2 gigs. I don't think it was comfortable, and the practices. And then I think a practice before the 3rd gig, maybe, I think something just clicked, and it was like, there it is. I was making the noise, but I was like really going really hoarse afterwards and stuff, and I was trying to do everything. And then luckily nowadays there's like loads of tutorials on YouTube and stuff, and I was like, okay, I'm going to revisit the basics of this, because I was completely self-taught and just did it and never had to think of it. And a lot of the real sort of the tips that really, really stood out to me was all about the neck and jaw muscles having to be extremely relaxed in order to get that without damaging your voice. And unfortunately, with my chronic fatigue syndrome, they're like some of the tightest muscles. So I had to like start doing like weird face yoga and everything. but
it's working.
Yes, it's working. I mean, again, it's been a couple of months. Oh, it's been a few months. Well, I can't even remember when our last gig was. It was in the back end of the last year.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll probably have to. And I do like lots of warm-ups and stuff at home, and I have to shout into a cup so my neighbours don't phone the police.
It's fabulous that those tools now exist. There's still so many to discover, and no doubt how you can develop your own style, and certainly hopefully get more comfortable with it. But speaking about comfort, first gig back, right? So as you say, it's going to be a one-off. You've decided to do it, and it's looking like it's going to be fun. You step out on stage. What's that initial feeling? And post-performance, you finished, you're walking off stage. What's the feeling there? Can you remember?
Yeah. Well, when I first went on stage, it was again, it was that familiarity that shouldn't have been familiar, because it's been a long time, but it was. Yeah. And just comfortable. And then I think I like got a bit overexcited and like leapt around a bit. And then I remember thinking like in the first song, oh, that's going to hurt me afterwards. And then like the next day, it's like I could barely talk, and it's the first time I've leapt around like that since having a cesarean. So I thought I'd like broken something. It was like the old lady kicked in, but actually, like, yeah, I just think a lot of it is trying to, it made me like, again, revisit the looking after my physical health, that because I'm not 19, 20 anymore. So,
But isn't it
but yeah,
fabulous that infectious state still took over you, at least momentarily, regardless of the sort of long-term effects or temporary effects that follow it? That moment, the fact that it injected you, I mean, did you have a moment where you almost like out of body experience and you were back at the age you were, and it was the Astoria or Wembley or so on, again?
yeah, yeah, just sort of something, just, it was like yeah, it was so strange, and so sort of like being back doing that again. And the
Mm.
first gig back was in Kettering, our hometown, and there was so many like familiar faces, all, they were all obviously 20 years older as well. But yeah, and I think I'm a more confident person, I'm a more confident woman now, like,
Mm.
gone through everything that I've gone through. So I feel like that was good, although I was like really insecure about my age and everything. I was like, can I do this? But then I think, again, like the next gig we did, I was sort of told myself, no, don't jump around as much because you really hurt yourself last time, and then totally did it anyway. So yeah.
How do we go from that show to another show and another to where we are now, though?
Yeah, well, the thing is, like, originally it was just a case of, we're going to do this gig for Russ, the guy that produced 1 Inch God, and
Yep.
we'll do it for him. And then sort of as we were doing more practices, we were like, well, maybe we could do maybe another one. Yeah,
Hmm.
we'll do another one. So we did think, oh well, we've done all this work and got back together and done this. Let's do another one. And then we did that for Russ as well, because why not? And Russ came to the gig. And then I think after that, I think we started talking about, actually, shall we just let's keep doing it.
Hmm.
And I said, well, yeah, that's okay, but obviously it's not, I've got lots of other things going on, and but so we can't do it like as like a career
Yeah.
such. It's a great thing for us to sort of do, to enjoy, and again, like, take some ownership back of that, because we were so disempowered. I think a lot of bands were in those days, by the music industry, because you didn't have the opportunity to be able to record yourself,
Hmm.
or be able to release yourself. There was technologies, just, we can do this recording by ourselves, and we can do it at our pace. We don't have to pay for a studio or a producer, because luckily one of our guitarists has got some like his degree in production now. So
Yeah.
we don't have to pay for all that stuff. We don't need a record label, and that means taking ownership of those things. I think that was really important to us. And yeah, a bit of nostalgia, but also let's do some new songs and see what happens.
I mean, that is fabulous. I love the ownership side of things as well, because that gives it longevity. We're in a world now where, thanks to online streaming and all that, and this is across all areas of media, things are disappearing. Things just slowly are disappearing. And obviously, 5 years that Defenestration existed, and 20 years later, slowly but surely, those things disappear. Every so often, you can still kind of go on YouTube and discover like a hidden gem of an old video that I like you don't know even existed for the band and things like that. But even now, that's getting harder and harder. So to kind of bring it back into the public eye and give it new legs and longevity, I think is personally so important.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I with our second and third albums, the band weren't really pleased with the way they like were produced, and actually, like, I mean, like, some of my favorite songs of Defense are on the second album, but I don't think the production gave it the justice it deserved. And I think it's nice to be able to sort of we're taking sort of a mix of the second and third album songs to re-record. We
Yeah.
want to leave 1 Inch God as it was, because we love it. It was a unique thing in itself,
Yeah.
and yeah, and then move on. And some of I mean, it's interesting with the new riffs that people are coming up with. that it's like it sounds like they have grown and developed, but they also sound like they've probably written them in the past 20 years at some point and thought, oh, I can't really use that for this or to that. And then it sounds like a Defend riff, but 20 years on.
Put it to the side, maybe. Who never, and who knows?
Yes.
Why you, though? Why did you personally want to bring the band back?
Well, again, like I just originally it was kind of because of Russ, because he's important to me.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, I feel like I just kind of went along with it because actually it was really fun. But from a personal level though, I think it has been a bit of a roller coaster for me because like going back and having to almost, I've done 2 degrees since then. I've got a lot of other stuff in my brain. I had to like relearn those lyrics in a way. So I had to like go back, and it was like reading an old diary, and it was kind of cringy and also a bit emotional because like, even though I wrote quite metaphoric songs, it was about like trauma and stuff. And I think because I'm a therapist now, I felt like I was analyzing myself, my younger self. And I sort of went through a whole process with it. So for me, like writing new songs is really important for me because I feel like I can sort of tell a different story, a story of how things are for me now. And that sort of change is quite a big thing for me. So I guess if I'm going to be sort of analytical of it, that's kind of for me what has kept me wanting to do it.
Oh, fascinating, man. So you really want to show off that personal growth.
Yeah, absolutely. And I work in mental health. It's my career, and I know that lots of people in like that listen to alternative or metal and punk and all these things are normally people that have problems with their mental health. They're on the fringes of society, and if like I can kind of like use what I know in that and bring it into a different platform to help people, that'd be awesome.
Are you excited by the fact that a lot has changed within all areas of music, but when it comes to talking and speaking and opening up about mental health and so on, it's far less taboo than it ever was. There's a lot of work still to be done, but now you are finding, particularly if we're talking about the alternative rock and metal scene, more and more bands opening up in ways that they never used to. How excited does that make you feel to take your own personal stab at that?
I think it's great. I think like I think like when it comes to my business that I run, I'm an art therapist, and I'm very interested in like music and stuff as well. And I have this dream of having an art and music center for mental health. And because a lot of people that I come across, clients or through mental health and stuff, are people that feel like they're on the fringes of things and have gone and they like these kinds of musics. And I think there's a lot more emotion and stuff in the kind of music than just this sort of polished pop music sort of thing. I don't have a problem with pop music. I love it too. But so I think, yeah, in general, people are talking about it more, and that's really good. And I'll totally be part of that, I think, to encourage that.
I can't wait to hear what comes in the future. I really, really can't. But you mentioned this earlier on, the industry has changed a hell of a lot. I mean, in stupid ways to some degree since Defenestration was first around. And, the social media side of things is a lot of work. Obviously, it's all a learning curve, algorithms and all that nonsense that you've got to kind of get on with there. From that side of things, what do you perceive, or what is the most challenging aspect of the modern world for Defenestration?
Oh my gosh. I think, I think that's probably why we ended up deciding to go down getting a manager, honestly, because
Yeah,
it takes time, all this social media stuff. And I think like I said, there's good parts of it because there's the technology's changed. We could get our music out there to the whole world with no record label. And that's amazing. And you've got to, I'm not ever going to be one of these people that goes, oh, it was better in the old days, but it's definitely different in the old days. And so, yeah, I think it is challenging because as well, like just getting gigs and things, like it used to be, to get big gigs back in those days, it would be based on radio plays, like what interviews you'd had in magazines and, where you'd played across the country, which is why we ended up being able to play some bigger gigs because we'd literally worked our asses off for but now it's all about views and streams and numbers and followers and all this. And that's something that we've got to sort of, I struggle to do it for my own business, let alone, it's just like understanding, getting all those numbers. So the numbers game is very different now. And I think that's probably going to be a challenge.
You're playing catch up as well. I mean, you've existed as well, so you have you have knowledge of, and you've got a business of how all of this works. But from a band perspective, when you're playing catch up, it feels like it steps behind already, and catching up is, it feels impossible.
Yeah, I think we sort of all started TikTok accounts, but I'm just like, I just don't know what to do. I just feel so super orcs with it. but it's like that's what bands do now. And yeah, like I think it is just thinking up content because we're just not used to that sort of thing. I think it's kind of cool because I like looking at other bands' TikToks and stuff that people do. It's just it's so different and very different.
Yeah, it really, really is. I feel though that as time goes by and the more you utilize that world, it gets more natural. It becomes less awkward. Aside from the TikTok thing, I think that's permanently awkward. If you come to TikTok now, you're screwed basically. You needed to be in there a lot earlier, I think, for most bands. But everything else like Instagram and all that, the fact that we're going through your socials at the moment and how you're using it in particular to repost a lot of older stuff has been fascinating. There's old photos that were taken, shoots and stuff like that. That's the way that I've reminded myself because it's been 20 years, and when your name first came back up, I was like, oh. Hold up here, what's going on here? And then, I spoke to my wife. She's roughly around the same age as me as well, and said, do you remember these guys? And it was that initial nostalgia trip. And then looking at photos and going, oh, yeah, I remember this. I remember having this magazine and seeing that and so on. So those elements definitely feel like they're working. And then it's just a matter of building up that content as time goes by. And hopefully then as a group, you get more and more comfortable with it. And then you start winning the social media game, whatever that might mean.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm not even sure what that means, like anymore. I don't know, but yeah, I think, it's just so. I'm still getting my head around it. I'm not going to lie.
Hopefully, whatever happens, it's fun because I think that's the most important aspect of it.
I think that is like the main thing here because you can't. It was fun back then as well, but it was also like kind of my job. It was my job. I was only young. I was, like I said, I was living here at my mum and dad's and doing sort of working in factories on agencies when I wasn't on tour and then going and doing the touring and stuff. And that was kind of my main job. So yeah, the life is different now. But it's got to be fun because it's a lot of hard work if it's not fun.
Oh yeah. But I would like to look back at the brief time that Defenestration was around, 1999 to 2004, roughly. I think you're very proud, no doubt very proud of what you accomplished then, regardless of all the challenges. But is there a specific moment from that period that when you think back to always puts a smile on your face?
Oh, there's loads to be honest, but like when it comes to like my favorite gig, for example, like Reading Festival, Um, I literally remember I was only like not long 19 years old. I remember saying to our manager at the time before we went on that I felt like a child who was worried people wouldn't come to my birthday party, because like I was so convinced that there was going to be just like a row of our friends at the front and then no one else like interested. But I mean, it's really cute. My 17 at the time year old brother videoed it, and there's just this bit on the video of us where you can literally see me turn around to the rest of the band and go, oh, like, oh my gosh, the place is full. And I think that's probably one of my favorite. I think it's probably my favorite gig that I ever did with Defend, because it was just such a shock. And I think it really showed that all our hard work up and down the country paid off. Because people knew who we were and people came to see us, and it helped that I think it was Supergrass on the main stage at the time, which aren't very metal. So I think most metalers came to see us, which was handy. But still, yeah, like that aside, it blew my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, where have all these people come from? It was really good.
It's a unique honour to play a festival like that, particularly during that period when the alternative scene was a bit more ingrained in Reading, at least, say, compared to how it is today.
Yeah, yeah, it was amazing. And I think I remember also finding out, like I remember talking to our manager when he said about us playing Wembley for Tattoo the Planet. And I mean, it's just ridiculous, really. Like I'll show you how ridiculous it was. Like we were the only band that turned up in a transit van for a start. And the stage was about as big as most of the whole venues we were playing at the time. It was just kind of funny and ridiculous. And also, I was the second ever teenage girl to play on that stage, Britney Spears being the first. So that was quite so that was funny too. And there was like one other girl there, the backing singer from Cradle of Filth.
Of course, that would have been the case, wouldn't it, during that particular time period? That must be. Talk to me then, if you don't mind. Give me sort of like how you feel about the changing face of metal in regards to women in bands, women as front people, and just that it's changing in a positive way. Again, still a lot of work to be done, but it compared to, as you said, back then and being completely alone almost to some degree.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's like a good thing to talk about today. It's International Women's Day.
Of course.
Yes. So, no, I think I have seen that there are more female like metalers now, and I am so happy about that. I really am. And it was quite tough at times, because I think even though it gave us the novelty factor, which I think, if I'm honest, probably helped us get the attention we got, especially at the beginning, because we weren't really that good. So I think the novelty factor was great, but it was tough because there was also like people commenting on the appearance of women if they didn't. I mean, and I did not look like what I was supposed to look like as a girl in metal. I was like wearing pink, and I was fluffy, and I was a bit chubby, and even chubbier now. I'm old, but I don't care. But like the point was, it was like no comments would be made about the overweight, balding metalers who were men. It was always commenting, whether even if it's like positive or negative, it always ended up being about the appearance. And I used to think at the time, I mean, I was 19, it's not great for your self-esteem, but I used to think about the self-esteem of the younger girls that were looking like fans of Defen, that were reading things like that in magazines, and then thinking, well, I can't do it then because she's getting abused for that. So, and that really upset me. But now I'm like sort of come into it as this like more confident woman who works it as my job to empower other women. And, you know, I'm a mum, and I feel like I would love to connect more to all these new generation female metalers and just be their mum and like, come on, girls, we can do this. So, like, I'm like, you know, there are a few out there, and I don't even know how. I haven't really sort of delved into metal music much recently, but I've seen a few, and I'm just so happy to see that there's more. Definitely.
It is a changing face of the industry, but it should be repeated. There's still so much work to go in that regards, particularly from a backstage side of things, from areas of that, and just in regards to respect and better treatment and stuff like that. Fingers crossed it continues to evolve, change, and just become a better place for, well, not just everyone, but women in general too. And hopefully you are an integral part of that going forward too, as part of Defenestration.
I hope so. I'd like that. I really would.
Going again back to that time period, the brief time the administration was around, and you talked about yourself a lot in this interview, but I want to know if you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice, then what would it be? But just as importantly, do you think your younger self would have listened?
Oh gosh. I think, oh my goodness. I've obviously thought about this quite a lot as in like what I do. And I think I would have probably, I think I just want to go back and give myself a hug and say it's okay. And it's like, and don't worry about all those things that people are saying, because actually your uniqueness is the thing that people will remember you because of. Because I think I probably would have half listened, but also just carried on my little trail of destruction like you do at that age.
Yeah, in one at one so to degree you can be told many things, but if you're dealing with anxiety and issues like that, it doesn't really matter, unfortunately.
No, but I do think like I feel like I'm doing some kind of therapy on my younger self by doing this in itself anyway. So
Well, isn't it fascinating? You mentioned this before, but fascinating revisiting those old songs and those lyrics and things that you wrote at such a unique period of time in your life that certainly, of course, don't necessarily apply to who you are now, but they are still you in a way.
yeah.
I've never done anything like that, so I have no idea what the feeling is like.
Yeah, it was bizarre. Like I think it was just because I'd read the song, and even though I don't remember thinking about it in that way back then, I'd read it and go, oh, I know what that's about. That's about this. And it was quite sort of distressing, but then made me, it's kind of healing because I've been able to then sort of, you know, it sounds really, really hippie like, but kind of like nurture that inner young person that was going through those things. And now I've come through all that, and I now help people that are like what I was, I suppose. Yeah.
And that is simply the most incredible thing of all. I cannot wait to see what comes from you in the future. It's so exciting for me as a young once a younger fan, and relearning that fandom these days. Finally, Jen, if you don't mind, do you have any particular goal or a realistic aim that you would like to achieve this year as far as Defenestration is concerned?
Well, we've got a couple of gigs booked, which I'll tell you about. We've got one on the 3rd of May in Northampton with Kid Booking. And we've got one booked, Northants Rocks, which is great because we've got some other Northamptonshire bands that are like, we've got Raging Speedhorn and Gutworm as well, which we've played with before. So that's going to be fun. I think get some more gigs because that's the fun bit at the end of the day, isn't it? So we'll get some more gigs, and we aim to be getting songs out by late spring, maybe mid-spring. Let's be mid-spring. I'm putting pressure on them now. We've got to get it done. But we can start like releasing these songs and maybe looking at doing videos and stuff for them, because that's what you do now.
Yeah.
For all of your songs. So I think, I think this year is going to be more about just reminding the people who we are and hopefully getting some new fans.
That will do. That will definitely do. I can't wait. I genuinely can't wait. I'm in London, so hurry up and get yourselves down this way, please, as soon as possible.
No, our manager's on it. He wants to go to London. He wants to get us there.
Fabulous. This has been an absolute pleasure, Jen. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for taking your time to do this for this old band that have just like popped up again.
Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. It does help us out. You can find us at gbhbl.com and across all social media platforms. And if you really want to give us a bit of extra support, please consider buying us a cup of coffee over on our coffee page. Thank you.